We will go ahead and get started. And just to let you know, we are recording this, and so it will be posted on our YouTube page following the event. Today we have Anna Panter, who is one of our coworkers at Marriage Initiative, and Anna will be opening us up in prayer. So thank you, Anna.
Thanks, Katie. Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much, for so much goodness that we have in this community together. Lord, you've created each person here and this collaborative on purpose and for a purpose. Lord, I pray that as we just do this work and share in this work together with our local teams, our family members, and even on a national scale, Lord, that you will guide us with your wisdom, your courage, importantly, your peace among us, that we remain in unity together, that we keep our gaze fixed as it should be, Lord. So, and most importantly, Lord, I ask for your nearness, that you dwell among us in this work, individually and corporately. I ask for blessings over every family represented here, and over this time, this agenda. May it be an encouragement, and thank you, Lord, for reasons to celebrate. Thank you for all the work that's been done and that we are going to do. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you so much, Anna, for lifting up our marriage community leaders. We appreciate it. Thank you. And I'd like to go ahead and welcome everyone to our virtual launch for Marriage Initiative. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon or morning, depending on which part of the country you're in. It's so wonderful to see everyone's faces around the room. We always love when we have everyone in the same spot. And I know that we have both some familiar faces on the call today, as well as a few new friends. So since we do have a few new individuals, I'd like to first provide a brief overview of what Marriage Initiative is and what it is that we do. And by we, I'm really referring to all of us here today. As Caton has so eloquently put it, Marriage Initiative is collectively ours. Our mission is to serve our grantees and our partner cities, but Marriage Initiative is you, and it is us, and it is all of our partner cities together. And really simply put, without all of you, without all of our partner cities, Marriage Initiative would not exist. And as many of you know, the vision of Marriage Initiative is to elevate the importance of marriage through leadership teams as you guys collectively and collaboratively work together in your own respective cities. And over the past year and a half, we've had the honor of walking alongside cities as you guys have done just that, work collectively and collaboratively together in an effort to serve marriage in your communities. And we've really seen a unique story unfold with each of our 14 partner cities from around the US, from the CMI team up in Tacoma, Washington, all the way down to Austin, Texas, from coast to coast, Fresno, California, over to Charlotte, North Carolina. Each team is really made up of, a passionate, dedicated group of individuals who are really on mission together to bring about, a movement and a change in their communities. And that's what this virtual launch is all about, to celebrate the work that you all have been doing over the past, whether that's a few months or a year and a half, or even past that. And just to name a few, we've witnessed cities working at the state level to elevate the importance of marriage through annual statewide events. We've seen other cities who have mastered the art of discovering couples who are perfect for leading marriage workshops and supporting other couples. And then we have other CMIs who are strategically working through how to best approach churches and implement new marriage ministries throughout their city. And that's really just kind of the tip of the iceberg. We could go on and on about all of the amazing work we are seeing, but to give you a better idea of what our CMIs are experiencing from their own perspective, I'd like to show you the first half of a tribute video that was created by a few of our partner cities.
name is Bob Rosher. I am with Greater Charlotte Marriage Initiative. And man, I can't speak enough to what Community Marriage Initiative has meant to me, starting with meeting Carl Caton years ago and being part of San Antonio Marriage Initiative. It's just something that's been critical to my life and now has built relationships across the country around this subject of marriage. It has been so life-giving, and knowing that we have so many people across the country investing in seeing marriages restored, hope restored to marriage, and hope for our families and our kids. So it's really meant so much. And then, immediately here, when I got to Greater Charlotte and the idea of building a community marriage initiative here, just the thought of that and coming together with other churches, the church needs unity. It needs to be seen as working together around certain subjects. So the fact that we could come together around the subject of marriage as churches, restoring hope, restoring marriages, strengthening marriages. What a cool thing that speaks, not just to restoring marriage, but also to a world who's watching the church work together. So again, can't say enough about Community Marriage Initiative, what it's meant to be, but looking forward to growing these relationships and opportunities to work together around this subject of marriage. So thank you so much. Have a great day.
Hey, I'm Saul Scaff in Austin, Texas.
I'm Paul Kuhn.
And we're with the Ford Foundation. We're so excited to be a part of the Community Marriage Initiative. Ford Foundation's always been about equipping coaches and counselors to take care of people, and marriage is a great place to take care of people.
And for our vision for Community Marriage Initiative, we just envision, every person in Austin having access to marriage resources within 5 miles of them. So that means working with all the churches throughout the city to blanket the city for easy access for every couple in the Austin area.
Yeah, we want it to be where no one has to go further than 5 miles to find a quality, affordable, accessible resource that helps them in their marriage. And we're just really grateful to be a part of it. Thank you for what you're doing.
And we're excited to be working with all of y'all doing this across the nation. Great to be part of this wonderful movement.
Hi, we're Dave and Cheryl Belden from sunny California. We're with the Healthy Marriage Coalition in Fresno.
We are so excited to be part of this marriage initiative. We've been doing this for over 15 years, and we have been learning so much just in the last year. We felt like reaching hundreds of people was good, but now we're learning ways to reach thousands of people.
Yes, and we have been so encouraged by all of the people that we have met in the last few months all over the country who have the same passion for marriage that we do.
Looking forward to seeing you at the launch.
Hi, we're Jerry and Kate Angelo of Vanguard Marriage and Family Advocates, and we've just recently launched our community marriage initiative called marriageminute.org. And I just wanted to say thanks to Katie for all of your hard work and dedication for helping us get us to where we are today, and for Carl for your amazing leadership on all of the stuff that we've been working on lately, and for Dennis, because without Dennis, let's be honest, he's been such a great help in equipping all of us and allowing us to make the progress that we've made.
It's because of people like you that we can affect change in our community and help families find a foundation in their marriage with God.
Thanks again, and we wish great blessings upon your organization. Thank you.
So we'll play the second half of the video towards the end of our launch, but I could really watch that video over and over. It's just so special to hear from you guys and to see how your cities are being impacted. So thank you for sharing. So next on our agenda for today, we have our keynote speaker, the wonderful Ted Lowe. And I'm sure a lot of you in the audience here today know and love Ted just as we do. But to give you a little more information about Ted, Ted is the director of Married People, whose mission is to help you do marriage better. And Ted is also a speaker and author of 3 books: Married People, How Your Church Can Build Marriages That Last. He's also the author of Your Best Us, Marriage is Really Easier Than You Think. And then his most recent book, Us in Mind, was just released this past year. So check it out if you get a chance. Ted graduated from Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California, and he was a pastor for many years. He is also a dear friend of Marriage Initiative. And today, Ted will be speaking on on a few things, on the state of marriage, what he sees going on at churches and how we can serve them better, and why our work in serving marriages is so important. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Ted.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you guys so much for having me. Carl, thanks for always. Carl's that guy in my life that thinks more highly of me than he should. So you got to have people like that in your life. So thank you for that. And of course, again, thank you, Katie, for all your hard work. I am super excited to be with you guys because I don't get a chance or haven't gotten as much of a chance to talk to leaders who are helping those who are helping marriages. You know, we're a couple of spaces back. The thing we share in common is that we want to help churches help marriages. And so I'm super excited about that. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about the state of marriage and where that is, and also the state of where the church is, how those things are kind of intersecting and how it's going to impact what you guys are trying to do, and then kind of talk about what's the smoothest, easiest way, and some of the things I've learned over the last 12, 13 years of working with churches. And hopefully I can shortcut you with some of my pain. A lot of you are going to go, some of this you're going to hear you going, man, we knew this long ago. Some of you going, oh, I didn't know that. But hopefully it'll, for all of us, get us thinking. And if nothing else, just inspired to keep doing what we're doing. So I'm going to share screen here. Boom. Okay, good deal. The state of marriage and what the church can do about it. I worked at North Point Community Church for 10 years as the director of married life there. And so it's a large church here in Atlanta. And so we would have all these churches coming and going, how can you, it's great that you guys can do this with your big budget and the big staff, but how can you help us do this? And we started getting that question so much. I told my wife, I said, I think God may be pulling us in the direction of answering that question is, better for churches, that if we can learn how to do that well, and we can resource churches all over the country. And so when I met Carl, I guess, I don't know, 12 years ago, Carl? I can't see Carl. I want to see Carl. Let me see. Let me scoot these notes over just a little bit. I need to see it. When I met with Carl and he was telling me about what you guys were doing in San Antonio, I immediately thought this needs to scale. This is not just about San Antonio. Like this could really be powerful for churches all over the country. And so just have loved seeing what Sammy's doing, which, by the way, I think the only downfall of going from Sammy to CMI is Sammy's cuter. From a marketing perspective, Sammy's kind of like a puppy. CMI sounds like somebody you need to bring in after someone's been murdered. So we need to think through the branding on that a little bit. But no, I'm totally teasing. But no, I'm just so excited to watch it scale. And the power in that is just absolutely massive. And for all of you that are about to go into the cities, thank you. It could not be more timely. So I'm going to dive in just a little bit. What's the state of marriage right now? This is the state of my marriage right now. We have 4 kids ranging in ages from 12 to 22. So we need deep prayer. They were here for a really long time during Christmas. So I'm still twitching. Love them. They're great from a distance. Anyway, no, they're great. This is the state of my marriage. We've been married for 27 years. She's my best friend. And so with the state of marriage is when they looked at what COVID and what the pandemic did. I wasn't surprised to find out something that if you've been in the marriage space for a while, you've probably said this, that marriage is never in neutral. It's either moving forwards or it's moving backwards. And that's exactly what the pandemic proved, is that every couple was impacted by it one way or the other. 38% of couples after the pandemic said we're struggling more than we were before it, which that's not a really big shocker there. But when you start doing the math on that and you think about the people in your church and in your community, that every third couple that you're passing is struggling. I mean, that's staggering. So if some of you are watching this and you're like, wow, I'm launching into the new year, it's just really the thing I need to pour my energy into. If you need a little bit more, research or data, I think here it is to know, yes, whatever time that you've got allotted moving forward this year. It is so crucial. But the exciting part is that that 58% of couples said we're actually stronger since the pandemic, which I love that because, and it's not really that shocking because we all know in our own marriages, when you go through something tough, you're in the middle of it. If you could blink your eyes and make it go away, you would. But then there's something that comes afterwards that you just can't describe. And so people are saying, hey, all of a sudden we stop caring so much about the little annoying things, and all of a sudden we'd see each other as a safe harbor. The same thing happened after the Great Recession. The divorce rate dropped by 20% during that time. It has not changed since then because people started seeing each other. But I started to think through this, why is this the case? I mean, I'm the kid that started asking why at an early age, and I still haven't. Like, I wanted to know why. Why was this time so, why were people so impacted by this one way or the other? And as I was studying, I landed on a book by Charles Duhigg called The Power of Habit. And in his book, he says this. He says, habits become flexible when things become emotional. And that's true, right? Like, we know that, every Sunday at church, one of the things we do, of course, we want to hit people's intellect, but we also want to hit their emotions. So we create worship music and inspirational stories to create these emotions and hope that it keeps people's habits really, really flexible moving forward throughout the week. And so what happened on a global sense was everyone's habits got rocked because everyone's habits were emotional. So what we're looking at right now is in this season is the cement is wet for so many marriages in a good way and a bad way. And, we want to, of course, help the ones that are hurting, but I want to help and I want to leverage the ones that are saying, hey, we want to do better. And we've realized our marriage should be more. Like, I want to make sure that we're tapping into both of those things and really helping couples to do that. And for me, when I start looking at trends like this, everybody used the word for the pandemic about it was unprecedented because we had no precedent of how to handle it. What I try to do during those times when I'm a little confused with what's going on, which is a lot of the time, is I'll go back to the initial verse. It was the first message I ever gave on marriage in 2001. And it comes from Colossians 2. And it's the thing, and it's the verse, and it's the truth that centers me that I go back to. And I think, no matter what's going on in the world, this will always be true. It's always been true, and it will continue to be true. Paul says in Colossians, he says, my goal is that they may be encouraged in heart and united in love. And I remember hitting that, sitting there, and I remember exactly where I was when I was studying. And I remember thinking that this is the goal, at least for me, that when couples would leave our events, when they would use one of our resources, that the sum of this, the outcome of this would be that they were encouraged and they were connected. They were encouraged in heart and united in love. And why would we want to do that? I love this. So that they may have the full riches of complete understanding in order that they know the mystery of God, namely Christ. Like, we want to encourage them in heart, unite them in love, namely, so they know Jesus. So I go, okay, no matter what's going on with the pandemic, no matter if somebody's marriage is doing great or they're struggling, this is the north for me, that we want to encourage in heart and unite them in love. So here's the big question that I want to sort of play around with. How does the church encourage married couples' hearts and unite them in love? Given what's going on with couples, how do we do this? Because here's where it gets a little bit trickier. And I'm gonna give you stuff that's gonna sound negative or it's gonna sound like bad news. But I think what it does is it helps us understand the actual opportunity that we have. And because we have to look, I think, when we think about couples and how do we help them in churches, is really the state of where's the church right now. And I think what we can all do, and what I need to do more of, if I'm being honest, is I've worked with church leaders over the last 20 plus years, is really, really tap into as much empathy as possible for church leaders. Because I'm just going to keep it real with you. I am so passionate about marriage and helping marriages and believing that the church is the place to help marriages, that sometimes, especially, a decade ago, especially, I would go to a church and I would almost be frustrated when I would see this amazing children's program, but they would tell me they had no budget for marriage ministry. Well, I'd get a little snarky about that. make a little side comment about that. And then, the Lord really convicted me on that. And right now I'm thinking, if we've ever needed to have empathy for church leaders, I think that it's now, because when you start looking at the stats of what leaders are going through, I read a stat the other day that 46% of pastors who are 45 and younger are thinking about quitting. So they're hurt. When you look back what happened during the pandemic, you go, wow, they really couldn't win either way. No matter how you feel about meeting or not meeting, mask or not mask, they were just attacked, a lot of them by the very people that they were serving. And, for some people, it was a capital T trauma. For others, at very least, it was probably the most difficult part of, ministry they've ever had. So as we're entering to serve these cities by serving these churches, I just know, and I'm just pointing all of this back at myself, is to remember, wow, they're really hurting right now. Because, but here's the reality of that. Even though they're hurting during a time when couples want more help, churches are offering less help because they are dealing with money, lack of attendance, whatever, their own pain. They're able to. But the more positive way to say this, as we shift here, is more than ever, churches need support with marriage ministry. So we can look at this and go, hey, they're doing less and less, or we can say, no, they need us more than ever. And I think we can do that they need us more than ever to dive in and to help. But I think the first thing that we've got to do as we think about entering into these cities, and some of you guys have already done that, you're already working with churches, this is the toughest hurdle that I have had as I've tried to serve churches over the years. This is by far the number one hurdle for me. It may not be for you. You guys may not see this, may not be your experience, but this, if you haven't experienced already, I feel like the toughest hurdle right now, and I feel like it's been this way for a while, but especially during this season, is the toughest hurdle is getting buy-in from church leadership. The toughest hurdle right now is to get buy-in from church leadership because, and this is something, I wrote this in 2015 in the Married People book, but I think it's even more true today, is that leaders have passion, but I can't see my slide because of that. They have passion, but not Katie, what's the word?
Time.
Not the time. That's fair. Leaders have the interest, but not the energy. Leaders have the desire, but not the determination to do one more thing. So I think this is important for us to acknowledge as we go in, as we work with leaders, is just to say, hey, this is kind of where they are. This is how we do it. So how do we do that? Despite all this, despite the fact of where churches are, how can we do this? How can we get buy-in from church leadership? And this is something, if you spend 2 minutes with Carl, that you will hear, serve. And I think it's just his life mission. I think it's what the heart of Sammy, now it's the heart of Community Marriage Initiative. And I think this is just the absolute right posture, is to say, hey, we are here to serve you. Because right now with pastors, they have had to do all the serving, and church leaders, all the serving. To have somebody that comes in with a posture of serving is just huge. And this is just they need to hear from us that we're not here to present you with problems, but to serve you with solutions. Like here's how we can do this. So how do we do this? I think this is going to start with, and some of you are way past this, but if you're adding churches, or maybe you've already working with 5 of the 10 churches and you're reaching out, I think it's important, and I can skip this step, I'm just guilty of this, is understand the leadership position and the pain points and the vision. We've talked a little bit about stats, but I think when we sit down with church leaders and pastor them and say, okay, we've got some programs and things that we're excited about or whatever, and we'll get to that. But first of all, talk to me, share with me just a little bit, and pastor the pastor a little bit. It's so funny, as I've worked with church leaders, I'll just say, how you doing? How you doing? And my wife laughs because she watches that. And you know what? Sometimes the question of how you doing has led into a 2-hour conversation with tears, because nobody's asking. That's not fair. For a lot of pastors, nobody's saying, how are you doing during all this? So to understand this, and also to understand what I had to keep remembering, that God's put authority, that these are the people we're talking about, they're the authority over this church. Finding out their pain points, and then finding out their vision. Like, where are you guys going? Like, where do you want the church to go? Because hopefully, the ultimate goal, of course, is for people to fall in love with Jesus at every church. But I think we can all say that churches have different ways of doing that. Some of them, they believe in global missions is the way to do that. Some, their vision is to local, mission. Some of them are discipleship. Some of them, let's reach out families, but just really diving in to what that vision is, and then to tie the solution to the leadership's vision. That as you talk about the ways that you want to help them, you just keep coming back to this thing that is going, okay, this is really where they're headed, and you're tying that vision. Because I think one of the things I see when somebody sees somebody coming in with a program, one, they think, what are you trying to sell me? Or they're suspicious. Your heart. They may not know your heart yet. And so, but to keep tying it back into their vision. And so you say, well, this sounds a little manipulative. I don't think it's manipulative. I'm thinking it's the way that we make the programs work. Okay. And then I think, and some of you've already got this figured out, but to present a strategy, but allow the leader to determine the pace. Again, and I keep saying this, I'll stop saying this. Let's just go ahead. Let me just set this. I learned everything the hard way, but I used to come in with the strategy that I'll unpack in just a little bit. And I thought churches needed to stop everything else and go. So I think when you're talking to leaders to say, hey, I'm going to present with you a holistic strategy because I want you to see that this isn't just a one-off thing. But we want you to know that, we'll go at whatever pace that you're comfortable with and whatever pace that excellence allows. And so I think it's just this thing that just acknowledging, some of the hurdles. Well, the first step of the strategy, I feel like right now, and this, some of you go, we have a different steps on our strategy. It's great because I know a lot of you are different nonprofits. Some of you doing re-engage, and you have a different strategy. But I'm going to walk you through one, just give us some context here. But I think right now, more than ever, we have to help them create a response plan for hurting couples. If you have maybe you're a counselor, or you have a friend that's a counselor, or you tried to get into counseling or get some of your friends into counseling. I think what we all know is counselors are packed out, right? They are slammed more than ever. And one of the approaches, and I think one of the connection points with church leadership, with pastors, is to say, hey, we know your office is full with people, and we'd like to help that. And here's how we would like to help that. Or how would you like for us to help that? Here's some of the things that we're doing to help you to do that. Some mentoring. Carl gave me this stat right here, and it has rocked my world. I'm not kidding you. Is that counselors report, one study shows that counselors report that 70% of the people in their offices don't require their level of care. This has blown my mind. I thought if there's ever been a stat that I've seen that points to the fact that what couples need, most couples needs is the church, I think it's this one. I mean, you've got people saying, it's like a dentist saying, hey, buddy, you don't need to see me for 6 weeks. You need to brush your teeth and floss. And so I was like, oh, wow, this is a great time for the church to get to come in and go, hey, we're going to create mentors, or we're going to point to, self-guided studies, or whatever this piece is that people aren't needing full-on counseling, which is really hard to get into right now anyway, but they're needing something else. I think they need more than ever. They're needing the church. So this is kind of my thoughts on how do we help couples crisis. And then here's the other thing that I feel like this has kind of been my space for not my space. There's lots of people doing the same thing, but for us, this is the thing I've worked on the last 13 years, is to create a strategy for the majority. There's lots of great resources for couples that are in crisis. What I had a harder time finding is how do we give them a strategy to keep them from getting into crisis in the first place. And so this is the married people strategy that we do. It's larger group experiences, small group experiences, and then individual couples. So how do we kind of in these layers help them in different ways? Larger group experiences. This is the thing I love to do the most, whether that's a date night or talking about it on Sunday morning. But this is the time we get to rally the troops. We get to show them that this is going to be a lot of fun. We get to show them we're not going to beat them up, and what I think, I know Sammy has found through social is that people are so responsive to, and the click rate is so much higher when something looks fun and engaging. And so here's a couple of examples of that. my wife and I do a thing called Your Best Night Out, Love, Laugh, Chill, and a part of a thing called Comedy Date Night. And what's so great about marketing something as a date night is that when somebody says we're going to go to something about our marriage at church, the first question they get is, hey, are you okay? But with date night, what's so great about that is people say, hey, we're going to a date night, and it just happens to be at church. And so this is something I've watched happen over the last decade that I think has been a game changer for marriage ministry, is that people see it as fun and engaging, and it's not weird branding, it's clear branding of, oh, this is going to be fun and it's going to be a date night. So I think that's something to think through, and it's at launch. I know Carl had said that, Sammy did not take off, or people did not see it simmer, did not take it seriously until they had a huge date night event with Gary Chapman, where they all came in and went, we're going to launch this thing. And so I just think there's so much catalytic energy to launch the other things that some people would say are deeper, but sometimes if we can't get them to the deeper thing becomes irrelevant. So I think sometimes these larger events are so powerful to get them to the things that are deeper. This is just one of the event we were just at, and they just did such a great job with it, just had a lot of fun. So the second part of this is small group experiences. This is existing small groups. This could be starting a study, whatever that is. We've learned over the years, I'll say to churches, hey, we don't want to create a new context. We just want to give you content. People have different models on this, but this is small groups. This is Sunday school. This is community groups. This is short-term groups. This is affinity groups. But like, how do we help? How do we become part of giving people content in the small group experiences? And for me, this is something I've said over and over. People need people who are for their marriage, right? We need people who are for our marriage. It's just become so key. And there's a thing called divorce contagion. Some of you heard of that. People are 75% more likely to get divorced if you have a close friend who is also divorced. And this is a Harvard study. And first I saw this and I went, I've seen this happen. I mean, we've all seen it happen, right? Like we've seen it happen where somebody's like, what happened? And people start talking to their friends, or they convince themselves that why divorce is okay. And then they convince their other friend. And we see that. Well, I believe the same's got to be true when we surround our marriages, people's marriages, with people who are for their marriage. I don't know. We can never prove this because you can't prove anything that's proactive. But I wonder if, people that are in a group of other couples who are cheering them on, who are for their marriage, I wonder if there's a 75% greater chance that they don't get divorced. And that's just my guess. And I just would have a hard time believing that would not be the case. So this is our small group. We call them the kibbutz. This is the people that, these are the people we like to be around a lot. Sometimes these are our people. We say we want to start a kibbutz. One day we're all going to pack up and leave and start a kibbutz. And they saved us during COVID. The final part of married people's strategy is individual couples, is really help church leaders wrestle with and think through, how can we serve people where they live the most, which unfortunately is on their phones? How can we empower them with great resources? How can we empower them? How do we help them with Content Mountain? Because right now where people are trying to get resources is on Google. And if they want to get a marriage book, they go to Amazon. There's 100,000 marriage books on Amazon. So can you imagine if you're hurting a little bit and you go, I just want to get a marriage book, and you go in there and 23,000 of those are Christian. So you're like, what? And so I think one of the greatest gifts that we can do is help them kind of weed through the stuff and just pick out the nuggets to help them to do that. This was a church who, one of the married people churches, I think they're in Washington, who created a pizza date night where they did homemade pizzas. They sent them off with a pizza and then a PDF with a date night on it. I just think they just knocked it out of the park. And that's what I would say to all this as I'm wrapping this thing up is, with all of this stuff, we got to knock it out of the park because here's the reality. And I don't know if this is right, wrong, or ugly, but I think we can all find it to be true, is most leaders don't get excited about ideas. They get excited about results. So when we knock it out of the park and we make sure we're marketing to get people there, when leaders see that kind of momentum, it's incredible. And I would say this, we keep remembering to make church leadership the hero. Somebody comes up and you go, oh, that date night was amazing. You go, yeah, I'm so glad it was great for your marriage. If you get a chance to thank the pastor or the leadership, do it, because they're the ones allowing this to happen. Without them, this is not happening. We have an Orange Marriage Ministry Kit to help you with resources. I hate pumping resources, but you can find them there. Thinkorange.com at Marriage Ministry Kit. Boom. I did what I said I would do with my marketing team, and I did. Okay, there we go. Here's the reality as we close up. So marriages need you. Marriages need Jesus. Marriage need the church yesterday, prior to COVID, today, and tomorrow. And I'll close with this story. I think the thing that ties this whole thing together is when we help churches create marriages that are like Ephesians 5, that are countercultural. Ephesians 5:21 starts with what? Submit to one another at a reverent set of Christ. In other words, it's a race to the back of the line. It's saying, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go first. And we see couples doing that. And it's so countercultural and it's so different than the world. When we help couples to do this, it draws people and they go, what do you have? I mean, one of the biggest entry points into our church is when we do marriage events, because you don't have to love Jesus to want your marriage work, but because people see marriage because it's a reflection of Christ in the church, which means it is the greatest marketing tool of the church, which I don't care where people land with their faith. When they see a couple that is living the way that Jesus tells us to, that we are directed to, it's just a beautiful thing. I watched this with my great aunt and uncle. This is my favorite of all examples is they just lived this way. Their whole marriage, they loved each other this way. They just always put the other one first. So when my aunt got Alzheimer's, no one was surprised that my Uncle Bob served her. But the level to which he did it was extraordinary because the way her Alzheimer's was manifesting itself, she was always fidgety and fussing and never could get settled, with the exception of riding in the car. And so we would hear about these long drives that Bob would take Sue on. But we had no idea the extent of this until the day of her funeral, when this very shy man who never wanted any attention, he kind of says under his breath, as we're all standing around, he goes, yeah, he said, we made it to all 48 states in the continental United States. I was driving us to Alaska, but I thought, maybe that's not safe. And I thought, that is the most extraordinary example of somebody putting someone else's needs ahead of their own when it's not fair. And it paints this beautiful picture that I call a bridge. That when you see this, that when you see two people living like this, it is a bridge back to church and it is a bridge back to God, and every bridge looks different, right? This is kind of our marriage. We're kind of crazy, right? But for everyone, it is reflecting the love of Jesus. And so I'm a little pumped up here by myself in my office. I know my dog is very excited. He gets very excited with this. I can hear my kids rattling around the house. But I just cannot say to you enough, as somebody that's been trying to help those that are trying to help marriages and churches, what you've decided to do, and however you got there, I don't know. God always does his thing where he weaves this word. Usually it starts with Jesus and Carl. I'll just go with that. But that you meet Carl, whatever your step was, that however you landed in CMI, that God used this story and he's got you at this point. And as you enter into this year, the only other thing I know for sure about marriage ministry is when you start trying to help other people with marriages, Satan's going to attack yours. So that's not to scare you, just something to be aware of. But greater is he that's in you that's in the world. But I would say that just something to be aware of. But I will say this, as you enter in and you hit those moments where you're like, man, I feel like I'm trying to help them and they won't let me, or I feel like if they would just do X, Y, Z, this could really work, and it'll be discouraging. Or maybe your motives even got questioned. I've had that before. What's your motives? Or what's your agenda? And that hurts, guys. And so you're going to have those moments where it hurts. You're going to have those moments where you feel like you're not making any progress. You're going to walk into church and see these incredible facilities, and then they're going to say there's no money for marriage ministry. You're going to feel those things. You're going to see those things, and you're going to wonder, is this the best use of time? And I get it. I promise you, if I get one thing on the planet, is those feelings. But then you'll have God give you those moments where you see a couple who's coming maybe to a date night, and when they got there, you could just feel the energy, and then toward the end of it, they're sitting close to you. You'll get a little email, you'll get a thing, and you'll see it. Grab onto those moments and love those moments. And I promise you, what you're doing is so important because it not only impacts the one couple, you know this, I'm telling you stuff you already know. It impacts the kids, the friends, the family, and I think impacts the kingdom. And I think more than ever, marriage ministry is so relevant to get people to take that bridge back to God and back to church. So thank you for doing what you're doing. I know it's not easy, but I promise you it is more than valuable. So I'll stop preaching.
Thank you so much, Ted, for that beautiful story at the end. And you always have so much wisdom to share with our community marriage leaders, and we are just so honored that you joined us here today. So thank you again. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you guys.
Okay, before we move on, we would like to pause for a moment and honor our CMIs through a quick giveaway. And if you took a peek at the agenda, you may have noticed that our first giveaway is a pair of tickets to a weekend to remember in the city nearest you. Now, the prize doesn't include transportation or hotel, but it does include the registration fee, which is valued at, I believe, around $350 per couple. So very exciting. And the winner may choose to either attend the event themselves as a couple, or they can choose to honor another couple in their community and donate the tickets to them. There's also an opportunity to use it as a marketing tool for your CMI and advertise it on one of your social media platforms. So whichever you choose, that's up to you. And prior to the event, we went ahead and entered everyone who registered for today's launch through Eventbrite into something called the Wheel of Names, which I'm going to share my screen quickly with you so that you can see just how we are making our selections. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and you can see here that we've entered in everyone who registered through Eventbrite on this wheel, and we're going to go ahead and spin it. And Ted, you are in here too. And the winner is John Patterson. Let's see, is it? Oh, it's Rachel Lang. My apologies, I announced it prematurely. Rachel Lang. And I should have mentioned that we would like for the person to be present on the call to be a winner. So let's see, is Rachel, are you on the call today? Let me just scroll through. You are? Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, I will get with you following the call. And as I mentioned, you will receive a pair of tickets to the weekend to remember closest to your city. So I'll reach out to you following the call via email, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. You're welcome. Let's see. I'd really like to thank Brady and Melissa Vandenberg. I don't know if they were on the call, but I wanted to thank them as well as Family Life, and they're the ones who donated the tickets. So we wanted to thank them for their generosity in donating these 2 tickets. Thank you guys. We appreciate you so much. Okay. So next on the agenda, we have Mr. Carl Caton, and Carl is the president and founder of Marriage Initiative. And today, Carl would like to share his thoughts on an exciting next step. So let me just pull up Carl's PowerPoint and we will go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Katie. And my goodness, thank you, Ted, for what a fun and interesting and meaningful message you shared today. As if I got to spend 12 years with Ted, that alone is worth everything that we've done together. So I am just so excited about that. Well, it's fun to be with you all today. We're so excited about this next step and this transition. And I always like to go back to our fundamental statement of belief, and that is that we believe God desires to redeem and restore marriages in our cities and across the country by his power and for his glory. And I think we all agree that God is moving powerfully, and we are so excited about what he's doing here. As we think about what's happening across the country, let's think about all the different people who across the country are creating our best-in-class resources for marriages. How about our authors and speakers, people like Ted Lowe and Gary Chapman and Emerson Eggerichs and others? How about the many people who are creating resources like Prepare Enrich and Symbis and Reengage and others? And what about our brilliant researchers, people who who across the country are doing best in class research, people like Brad Wilcox and Alan Hawkins and so many others. And we've got our influencers, people like Amazing Fierce Marriage that have this incredible social media presence and are influencing millions of people. And even the people that are doing events like We Can Remember and EXO Conference and others, and thought leaders as well. When we think about what's happening around the country, one of the things that we know is that for all of us, our work is what we call nationally informed. It's nationally informed because there are incredible creators and content writers and speakers and leaders and event planners and others who are creating best-in-class resources for couples, and they're rolling them out all over the country. But for all of these resources to be most effective, we know that these things must be locally driven, and that's what you are about, is that there has to be people on the ground in local communities, local champions who have a local framework through which they can create a vibrant ecosystem of support for marriages. And it's important to have you as our local leaders, because without you, these resources don't find their way to couples. Our local leaders, you as our local leaders, you are closest to the problems in your community, and you know best how to overcome them. And so we're so thrilled about how you all are working together. We have a great slide with some of the logos of the different local leaders who've already gotten some funding through the CMI project. And we're so excited not only about how you are reaching your own community, but how you're helping others in other communities. You know, because the next slide talks about the fact that we believe in collaboration. We believe in the collaboration among brilliant peers. Yes, that's you. Brilliant peers who understand your own communities and are uniquely able to define and lead for themselves the improvements they seek in their lives and communities, since they are closest to their challenges and know best how to overcome them. People in cities like Austin, Texas, and Casper, Wyoming, and Chattanooga, and Charlotte, and Corvallis, Oregon, Fresno, California, and Dallas, Fort Worth, Little Rock, every one of these cities we get to talk to every month. And if I start at the top, I think about the incredible guys in Austin and how they're creating incredible connections through this network of mentors that they've trained in. If I go all the way to the bottom, I think about the incredible energy of Jerry and Kate Angelo. You know, our national leaders are creating life-changing resources, but these must be put into place by brilliant local leaders. And so what we have here, friends, is a marriage movement. Now, the next slide talks about the fact that there are 3 essentials that have to be in place for movements to be most effective. That there has to be a high level of trust, because in order to help each other, we have to trust each other. There has to be, secondly, there has to be a high level of empowerment, because each of us can play our highest and best role across many sectors in our community. But finally, there has to be a sense of shared purpose. And that's what I want to camp out on in just a minute, is what is shared purpose? I think shared purpose is represented by what's happening here today. Shared purpose gets into this concept of shared identity. And I love this quote. It says, hidden in the human heart is a deep longing to be a part of something significant, something bigger than ourselves, something that only a God-sized story can fill. And I think it even goes deeper. I have a great quote on the next slide from General Stanley McChrystal. And this is what he says. And this talks more about that sense of shared identity. He says that courage is something that is different in every person, but most people are not courageous alone. You get courage from the people around you. If the people around you show optimism, if they show steadfastness, it's contagious. You don't want to let your comrades down. But the one thing that I've learned most interesting lately is that shared identity comes alive when there is a point of action. Now, if you think about how we come together as human beings, how we come together, let's say around our favorite sports team, game day is when our shared identity comes alive. Shared identity comes alive when there is a point of action. And so let me ask you this question. Is there a point of action that brings us together around marriage? Well, our next slide talks about this exciting thing that we're leading this year called National Marriage Week. And as you know, our team is serving the mission of National Marriage Week this year. And what I love about National Marriage Week is that no matter where you serve in marriage, whether you've sold 10 million books on marriage, or whether you are a lay couple that invites a struggling couple into your home, there is a single time and place during the year where we all come together, 1 week of the year, that we celebrate all that God is doing. And that is National Marriage Week. National Marriage Week is that point of action that weaves all that we're doing together. And we're so excited about the founders of National Marriage Week, who are Chuck Stetson and Sheila Weber from New York City. And they've done a remarkable job of laying the foundation for that week of celebrating marriage, February 7th through 14th. And I hope you would honor Chuck and Sheila by doing something in your community, either big or small, just to elevate and celebrate this incredible week that we're celebrating marriage. And so while we're changing our name, and you're getting to look at our logo here, and while our team has been shifting over the last year, our team now spends about 60 to 70% of our time serving leaders outside of San Antonio. So while we're changing our name and while we shifted how we serve, I want you to know that there's a few things that are never going to change. And our next slide talks about that. What will never change is how we do our work. This is the fundamental of how we do our work. And this is the fundamentals of how we want to serve you. Again, we always want to start by listening. And that's the purpose of our monthly calls with so many of you around the country. It gives us a chance to hear about what you're doing and listening about what are the challenges and roadblocks and what are you dreaming about. First of all, we always start by listening. Second of all, we want to pray and understand what are the needs that we collectively had. We're always looking for the signature pattern. What is God doing collectively? I love to say that God is not a God of chaos. He is a God of order, and God is going before us. And by praying and listening really well, we can understand the need. And thirdly, we want to serve the need. As you collectively express what are the needs that you have, or what are the opportunities that are before you, we want to collectively serve the needs. And fourthly, we're always looking for the connections. We want to find the connections. How can we bring our communities together to help one another and serve one another? You know, I love it that our team doesn't speak often. We say that if there's anything that we do well, is that we facilitate the process of people learning from one another. And that's how we find the connections, is that we elevate these brilliant people from around the country and let them share with others what they're doing. Fifthly, we want to celebrate the movement. We want to celebrate what God is doing. And we want to do that by collectively expressing our shared purpose together. And finally, and most importantly, we're always going to point to God. We're always going to remind ourselves that it is God that goes before us. And so the next slide talks about another thing that's not going to change with the marriage initiative, and that is these are our 4 values. And we've had these values for several years, and we have a poster on our wall here in our offices. And we're always going to do this work by following these 4 values. And the first is that we're always going to serve with surprising generosity, which is reflecting Christ's character. I love how Ted is always talking about the local church and its centrality to our work. We're always going to honor the local church because it is God's tool for reaching the world. We promise to relate authentically. We want to relate with you with genuineness and sincerity. And we want to express gratitude for you because we're so inspired by you. But most importantly, we want to follow obediently. And as we follow obediently, we want to leave the results to God. So it's really exciting to think about the results and what is going. And the next slide I want to share here. Is there an emerging marriage renaissance? Is this possible? Well, I often talk about my dad. My dad was a really wise fellow. And one of the things he often said, I heard him say this 100 times growing up. He said, son, the pendulum always swings too far in each direction. And we must admit that the pendulum has swung far from the centuries-old understanding of marriage. We've wanted as a culture, we've wanted our own way, and we know that our culture celebrates individualism. But now, after this, the pendulum has swung so far, what we've found is that we find ourselves and we find our culture experiencing an epidemic of loneliness. You know, one of the blessings of the pandemic, if you could call it that, is that we found that we really needed one another. And the single biggest mega trend that has emerged from the pandemic is that people are pursuing the parts of their lives that are most meaningful, especially their most meaningful relationships. Because no matter how far we drift from this thing called marriage, we still long for the things that marriage brings to us, right? Marriage brings companionship in the most extraordinary way. Marriage is the most powerful way we connect as human beings. Marriage is the most significant decision, and it's the most significant commitment we make to another human being. It's as if the desire for those things is written into our DNA, and I believe it is. You know, Tim Keller says that outside of our relationship with God, marriage is the most profound relationship there is. And I have to laugh because recently there was this cultural influencer and he was describing with great relish, what are the great longings of human beings? And this cultural influencer, this great thinker said, human beings long for companionship, and human beings long for connection, and human beings long for a firm commitment from others. And I was reading where someone else was commenting on this great cultural observer. And this gentleman responded with kind of a snarky remark, and I don't recommend snarky remarks, but there was some truth in it. And the person that was responding to it said, "Congratulations, genius, you just invented marriage." But the truth is that God created marriage for his people. And I believe people were created for marriage. So we hope for a marriage renaissance, and it may come, but either way, we're going to press forward in faithfulness together. And because I want to take us back to our fundamental statement of belief is that we believe God desires to redeem and restore marriages in our cities and across this country by his power and for his glory. And to that I say amen. And I just want to tell you all, I'm so thankful for each and every one of you. We are so inspired by you. The opportunity to have calls with you, to hear about your progress. I told Katie, even just in January, just the calls we've had in January, it just seems like we've just seen so much progress. So we want you to know that we love you and appreciate you. And we have this incredible sense of admiration for you. And we thank you for celebrating this day with us. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Carl. And what a wonderful presentation. And everything you said it's so true about our cities. And as I mentioned earlier, we could go on and on about, all the wonderful things we've seen over the past year. So thank you, Carl. We appreciate it. Okay, we have one more giveaway to honor our CMI teams. And one thing that we saw with our partner cities this past year is that many of you guys are beginning to do in-person meetings. And the frequency really varies with those meetings. Some choose to do it monthly, some quarterly, and others kind of just whenever everyone's able to get together. There may not be a particular schedule, but the feedback for the in-person meetings has been very positive. There's just something special about everyone getting together in the same room and maybe sharing a simple meal. So for this giveaway, Marriage Initiative will be donating a gift card for an in-person lunch for the city that is chosen. So I will go ahead and pull up our wheel of names here again, except as opposed to entering in individual names, we've included all of the CMI teams who are here with us today. And we will ask that someone from your team is present in order to win. So hopefully someone stuck around with for until the end with us. So let me just pull up our wheel here. Okay, and I'll go ahead and spin. And it looks like Oklahoma City Marriage Resource Network was our winner. And I saw a couple of individuals from the call earlier. And I think I saw Edge Ministries. Yes, I see them waving. Congratulations, you guys. If you could, I'll email you after this event and send you guys a gift card if that works out for you. So congratulations. Okay. Let's see. So we are going to go ahead and close by showing the second half of our tribute video. But before we do, I would just like to close by again thanking each and every one of our partner cities, whether they are on the call with us today or not. Thank you for all that you do day in and day out for serving marriages in your communities. Again, it has been such a joy and a privilege walking alongside you this past year, and we really can't wait for what's in store for 2023. And if the idea of a CMI is new to you, again, I know we have some new faces, and you'd like to learn more, or maybe you are interested in starting a CMI in your own city, please feel free to reach out to Marriage Initiative. Just very briefly, we can walk alongside you in 3 different ways. One, by helping you to frame a community vision appropriate for your community with a compelling message. We can also help with building community channels such as a website, social media, and newsletter. And then lastly, help you overcome obstacles and empower people broadly across your community so that really everyone is able to work more effectively. And you can email me directly at sammy.katieray@gmail.com, and I would be happy, as well as Carl, to chat with you further. Okay, so as promised, here is the second half of our tribute video.
Hi there, this is Christine Stensland with Guide Your Heart out of Rochester, Minnesota, sharing the beautiful winter scene here in Minnesota. Just thought I'd pop on quick and say how much Guide Your Heart is appreciated being part of the Community Marriage Initiative. We've been doing work in Rochester, Minnesota for several years on different marriage initiatives and trying to be marriage champions here, and really felt not really alone, but certainly felt like we are way more connected now that the Community Marriage Initiative has helped us connect with other marriage champions across the U.S., learn some insights, just share resources and share tips. And so we really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the Community Marriage Initiative.
Hello, I'm Dr. Teresa Masden, and I'm a marriage and family therapist and pediatric behavioral sleep medicine specialist. I'm so deeply honored to be a part of this Community Marriage Initiative. For over 40 years, I've worked mostly solo in serving the needs of troubled families here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And now it's so exciting to be a part of something that is bigger than just me. We all know the increased power of synergy and how great to be able to connect with others who have a passion to make marriages and families successful. There could be no other time in history that such a mission is more relevant than right now. More than ever, families need powerful guidance to navigate through these confusing times. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this community, and I'm ready to partner with others in bringing our highest and our best to families here in Dallas-Fort Worth. Let's do it.
So being part of a community marriage initiative means that I get to see lives transformed before my very eyes. I get to see light bulbs go on as couples discover and integrate new truths, new concepts, and new skills into their marriage relationship. And I get to watch as couples go from frustration and despair, even tears, to discovery, excitement, hope, big hugs and kisses. Cherry on top is they actually thank me. So, quick story, we recently had a couple in our class, and on the very first night, they came in late, they were fighting in the parking lot, the wife was in tears, and by the last class, they were one of the first couples to sign up to do a testimonial video on the positive impact that the class had made in their marriage. So lives and marriages changed, families transformed. That's what happens within a community marriage initiative.
Hi, I'm Rosalind Hickman, and I serve as the Executive Director of Covenant Keepers Marriage Ministry here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a ministry that was founded by my husband Gary and me back in July 2005. What the Community Marriage Initiative means to me is simply an answer to prayer. For years now, my husband and I and our staff and board and team have been working in our area to bring down this divorce rate. And without the funds to really monitor and track the success of our ministry, we really don't know what those numbers are. But now we have an opportunity in our area, not just covenant keepers, but joining together with people of like minds, believers, Christian churches, and others who have united here in our area so that we can do bigger and better things.
Hello, I'm Mark Ellis.
And I'm Jason Ancaro, and we are with the Central Arkansas Marriage Initiative.
So what does a CMI mean to you, Jason?
To me, I'd say a community marriage initiative is a movement to create unity within the churches for the betterment of the city, to build out God's plan for marriage ministry and to see culture changed around us.
And we look forward to it changing this community through the local church. We're excited to see the local church get deeper into the community, and we're the bridge to that. So as we see things develop, we look forward to being more involved. And hey guys, happy birthday and happy New Year too.
There you go.
Thank you guys again for joining us this afternoon, and we hope that you have a wonderful weekend and a blessed New Year. We'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.